Welcome back, my friends, to the final episode of Friday Night Frights. Yes, sadly, it is the final episode for this year, episode 4 of season 8, before Halloween. Then we will have a special reading on Halloween night. Of what book I have yet to choose, so it will be a surprise for you. So the story tonight out of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark by Alvin Schwartz is Stephen Gammell. The story is The Hook. Yarr! Night Captain Hook. First, let me wet my whistle with this delicious tasting bazooka soda pop. Oh my goodness gracious, this is so good. Oh. Oh my goodness, Vampire just loves that. Got that my favorite restaurant, the Cracker Barrel. You're wondering why a vampire could have human food. Well, I'm only part of vampire, so I'm a damn fear. Need to beat the human in me, so I could have human food sometimes. Yes, I get little indigestion, but it's well worth it. Just ate a bowl of chili. You don't want to be around me tonight, I'll tell you that. So, the story begins. Donald and Sarah went to the movies. Then they went for a ride in Donald's car. They parked upon a hill at the edge of town. Oh, Donald, you naughty little boy. From there, they could see the lights up on the valley. Donald turned down the radio and found some music. Oh, Vampire knew a spot like that, right at the base of the Superstition Mountains, where you could see across the valley. I took my victims up there. But an announcer broke in with a news bulletin. A murderer had escaped from state prison, and he was armed with a knife and headed south on foot. His left hand was missing. In place, he wore a hook. Okay, why was he in prison wearing a hook? They would have taken that off of him. Let's roll up the windows and lock the doors, said Sarah. That's a good idea, said Donald. That prison's too far away, said Sarah. Maybe we really should go home. But it's only 10 o'clock, said Donald. I don't care what time it is, she said. I want to go home. Look, Sarah, said Donald. He's not going to climb all the way up here. Why would he do that? Even if he did, all the doors are locked. How could he come in? Donald, he could take that hook and break through the window and open the door, she said. I'm scared. I want to go home. Listen to a woman's intuition, Donald. Donald was annoyed. Girls are always afraid of something, he said. You chauvinist. And he started the car. And Sarah thought she heard someone or something scratching at her door. Did you hear that? She asked as they rode away. It sounded like somebody was trying to get in. Oh, sure, Donald said. Soon they got to her house. Would you like to come on in and have some cocoa? She asked. No, he said. I've got to go home. he went around the other side of the car to let her out, and hanging on the door was the hook. See, she should have listened to Donald. Donald should have listened. It's a good thing he did listen in time. Now that man, he's out of a hook, and where's he going in and out of the hook at that time of night anyway? Oh, the hook store's closed. Oh my goodness. This one is called White Satin Evening Gown. See that white satin evening gown? A young man invited a young woman into a formal dance, but she was very poor. She could not afford to buy an evening gown she needed for such an occasion. Maybe you can rent a dress, her mother said. So she went to a pawn shop not far from where she lived. There she found a white satin evening gown in her size. She looked lovely in it. She was able to rent it for very little. When she arrived to the dance with her friend, she was so attractive everybody wanted to meet her. She danced again and again and was having a wonderful time when she began to feel dizzy and fainted. When she arrived, and she asked her friend to take her home. I think that's too much, she told him. When she got home and he laid her on her bed, the next morning her mother found her daughter had died. The doctor did not understand what had caused her death, so he had the coroner perform an autopsy, and the coroner found that she had been poisoned by embalming fluid. It had stopped the blood from flowing. There were traces of fluid on the dress. He decided it had entered into her skin when she perspired while she was dancing. The pawnbroker said that he had bought the dress from an undertaker's helper. It had been used in a funeral from another young woman, and the helper had stolen it just before she was buried. Never trust a pawn shop. And you know, that's a very plausible story. You know that? Very plausible. There are cases where they have been unscrupulous funeral homes. I'm not saying all of them are like this, but they've buried two bodies in one grave and sold that plot again, and buried two bodies in that same grave and sold another plot again. They were doubling their money on one plot, and you know, it's terrible. It's terrible unscrupulous things like that happen. So that's a very plausible story. That's sad. That makes Vampire very upset. Makes me want to bite somebody. Goodness gracious. Do you want the drink? This is good stuff. Love the bazooka bubble gum. And it does taste like the bubble gum. This one is called high beams. Not the beams in your ceiling. The girl was driving her old blue sedan when a senior at the high school, driving a sedan, was a senior at the high school. She lived on a farm about 8 miles away. She used the car to drive back and forth. She had driven into town at night to see a basketball game. When she was on her way home, she pulled away from the school and noticed a red pickup truck followed her into the parking lot. A few minutes later, the truck was still behind her. Guess where? I guess we were going to the same direction, she thought. She began to watch the truck in the mirror. When she changed speed, the driver in the truck changed speed. When she passed the car, so did he. Oh, this does not sound good, the vampire. Then he turned on his high beams and flooded her car with light. And left them on for almost a minute. He probably wants to pass me, she thought. But she was becoming uneasy. Usually she drove home over a back road. Not too many people went that way. But when she turned onto that road, so did the truck. I've got to get away from him, she thought. And she began to drive faster. When he turned his high beams on again, after a minute he turned them off. Then he turned them on again and off again. She drove even faster, and the truck drove and stayed right behind her. Then he turned his high beams on again. Once more, the car was ablaze with light. What's going on, she wondered. What does he want? Then he turned them off again, but a minute later, he had them on again. And he left them on. At last, she pulled into the driveway, and the truck pulled in right behind her. She jumped out of the car and ran into the house. Call the police, she screamed at her father out of the driveway. She could see the driver in the truck. He had a gun in his hand. When the police arrived, they started to arrest him, but he pointed to the girl's car. You don't want me, he said, you want him. Crouched behind the driver's seat, there was a man with a knife. Uh-oh. Was he trying to reupholster her car? He could have been a good citizen. As the driver in the truck explained, the man slipped in the girl's car just before she left the school. And he saw it happen, but there was no way he could stop it. He thought about getting the police, but he was afraid to leave her, so he followed her car. Each time the man in the back seat reached up to overpower her, the driver in the truck turned on the high beams, and the man dropped down, afraid that someone might see him. Oh, very plausible story again. Yes. Isn't this starting to sound like that movie Urban Legends? This one is another urban legend called Babysitter. You don't want to seat on the babies, though. It was 9 o'clock in the evening. Everybody was sitting on the baby on the couch in front of the TV. There was Richard, Brian, Jenny, and Doreen, and they were sitting on the baby, and the telephone rang. Maybe it was your mother, said Doreen. She picked up the phone before she could say a word. A man laughed hysterically and hung up. Who was it? Asked Richard. Some nut, Doreen said. What did I miss? At 9:30, the telephone rang again. Doreen answered. It was the man that called before. I'll be there soon, he said, and laughed and hung up. Who is it? The children asked. Some crazy person, she said. About 10 o'clock, the phone rang again. Jenny got up. This time she got off the baby. Hello, she said. It was the same man. One more hour, he said. He laughed and hung up. He said, one more hour. What do you mean? Asked Jenny. Don't worry, said Doreen. It's somebody fooling around. I'm scared, said Jenny. It's about 10:30, and the telephone rang once more. When Doreen picked up the phone, the man said, pretty soon now, and he laughed. Why are you doing this? Doreen screamed. He hung up. What's with this guy? Asked Brian. Yes, said Doreen. I'm going to call the operator and complain. The operator told her to call back when it happened again, so she could try to trace the call. At 11 o'clock, the telephone rang again, and Doreen answered it. Very soon, the man said. And he laughed and hung up. Uh-oh. Doreen called the operator almost at once and called back. The person is calling from a telephone upstairs, she said. You better leave. I'll get the police. Just then, the door upstairs opened. A man they had never seen before started down the stairs towards them. As soon as they ran out of the house, he was smiling in a very strange way. A few minutes later, the police found him there and arrested him. He had a box of tacos in his hand. It was their Uncle John, just playing a trick on him. Okay, this one's called Ah. Look at this guy. He looks like he's all fresh naked. Okay. This chapter was the same title as the first chapter, but the stories of the first chapter were meant to scare you. No kidding, they scare old vampire. In this chapter, they're meant to make you laugh. Okay, so final story for the night, for the evening. Okay, so this be final story to end on a good note, a happy note. This is called The Viper. Yes, they did a G.I. Joe cartoon on this one. So, here we go. A widow lived alone on the top floor of her apartment house. One morning, the telephone rang. Hello, she said. This is the Viper, a man said. I'm coming up. Somebody is fooling around, she thought, and hung up. A half hour later, the telephone rang. It was the same man. It's the Viper, he said. I'll be up soon. The widow didn't know what to think, but she was getting frightened. Once more the telephone rang. Again, it was the Viper. I'm coming up now, he said. She quickly called the police. They said they would be right there. When the doorbell rang, she sighed with relief. They are here, she thought. When she opened the door, there stood a little man with a bucket and a cloth. I am the viper, he said. I wish to wash and wipe your windows. Oh, he talks like vampire. He wishes to wipe and wash your windows. Okay. Ain't the stories for this season, except for Halloween, when we have another story, special story for Halloween night. Thank you so much for participating in Friday Night Frights. It's been a good season. Very happy that you were able to join me. Thank you so much for your support and your comments and sharing old Vampires videos. I really appreciate it. Been a very wonderful audience, and I really appreciate it. But old Vampire has a joke for you. Okay? A ghost walks into a bar. He sits down and he says, I would like a shot of whiskey. The bartender says no. The ghost says, why? He says, the bartender says, because we don't serve spirits here. That's right. Okay, so anyway, thank you so much. Love you guys very much. Vampire really looks forward to this every year. So you'll be seeing old Vampire periodically on this channel. Be looking at monster toys again. So I'll be making time for this, I think. Been requests for Vampire come back on the channel and do more monster stuff. So thank you guys again very much for your support and your kindness. So have fun, safe Halloween. Be sure to check your candy, make sure it's safe before you eat it. And better safe costumes so you don't trip and fall, and make sure traffic could see you. Carry flashlight. Go to places that you know. Don't take candy from people that you don't know. Don't go to old creepy houses that you don't know. Don't go into houses. No, it's a big no-no. Of strangers, if they invite you in, just say, no thank you, I stay here on step and wait for you to get your candy. You know, just be safe. Go with an adult, or go in big groups. That's best. Strength in numbers. So just be safe. Use your head. Never go alone. So you guys take care. Stay safe. Vampire wants to see you all again soon. So take care. Happy Halloween. Merry Christmas and all that good stuff. Christmas. Oh my goodness. They're bombarding us with Christmas already, and it's not even Halloween yet. That's disgusting. But anyway, we'll talk to you later. Bye bye.